Uh, this is the first evening in a series of 4 on the petal for resources. Let's start with the most uninteresting part of the evening. My name is Jaap de Wilde, and I'm your chairperson for this evening. I'm a professor in international relations theory here at this university. I don't expect there are many master students of our department here. Is there any master student from international? They have a heavy exam tomorrow, so that explains why they're not here. But fortunately, you are all here to be part of a series on a very topical issue, and also something close to our heart. When we think of resources, well, of course, natural gas in Groningen is one of the first things that comes to mind. Who owns it? Who is responsible for it? Who is responsible for cleaning up the mess when things go wrong, things like that. Well, in other parts of the world, they know these kind of situations as well, and sometimes even in worse conditions. At the same time, it's a global issue. We're all fully interdependent when it comes to natural resources, the economy, our electricity. Well, probably part of it is powered by coal coming from Colombia or New Zealand or perhaps South Africa. And so it's all global trade, it's all there. Probably the electronics I keep in my hand is filled with scarce materials. And I see our speaker of tonight nodding at that instigation because he is the expert, he knows about it. I'm very happy to announce that Ries Kamphof will introduce us to these problems, which is a combination of social issues, economic issues, geopolitical issues. It's politics, it's economics, it's all. And it all comes together in the issues of scarce resources. Ries Kamphof has investigated this in detail for NCDO, that's the National Committee for International Cooperation and Sustainable Development. And he wrote an excellent report on resources in Dutch. And he brought a few copies, so those of you who can't read it in Dutch, find a partner who will translate it for you. There are a few copies here. And so he has made a thorough investigation of this. In addition to that, Ries is also doing a PhD at the moment at Leiden University. And that's a related topic, but yeah, I think so. He's investigating the role of the European Union in other international organizations. And the EU, as you might know, has, one of the dossiers they have to cover is related to natural resources, energy politics, resource politics, etc. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, Ries, to this audience and give us 45 minutes of exciting geopolitical information on natural resources and how we battle over them.
Is this working? Yes. Very nice. Well, first of all, many thanks for the invitation this evening. Really enjoy it to be here in Groningen and to talk about natural resources and especially raw materials this evening. And I really find very good that you make a lecture series about this very topical issue. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself. Of course, Professor de Wilde did a very good introduction himself. But indeed, I made a report, unfortunately in Dutch, and indeed I brought a couple of copies, but it's also online. And I have my personal details also in the presentation, so you can email me after the presentation to get a copy. I also made on the right an explanimation movie, which is a combination of the word explaining and animation, so it's a kind of video. Unfortunately, it's also in Dutch, but I also brought 2 other explanations about this subject, which I will share with you later in this presentation. Well, NCDO is indeed the research center on sustainable development and global citizenship. We also have two media platforms. That is One World, which is more for students, the migrant organization. Maybe you know the magazine, and Some, which is more for children. And indeed, I also do a PhD on the EU in international organization. First of all, the structure of the presentation. In 45 minutes, I will introduce you to the concept of critical raw materials. After that, I will talk to you about raw materials as a source of products that you all know, like mobile phones, laptops. After that, raw materials as a source of wealth. And a question mark is behind it, because some of people say, well, it's not actually that positive if you have, as a country, many raw materials. Another topic is the source of conflicts. Indeed, I will also say more about the international conflicts related to raw materials. I will tell a bit more about the multiple actors, because there are a lot of actors involved, from governments to multinational companies to NGOs and also consumers itself. You, of course, you are also an actor in the field of raw materials, and I would like to share also the thoughts on this. And of course, there's much room for questions after that. Well, where did I get my information from for the study? I could also make a picture with a lot of books, but I chose to show the pictures of study centers, research centers, Ministry of Foreign Affairs on the right, experts from Zimbabwe and Democratic Republic of Congo, who you also see in the on the map, and right below is Prince Jaime de Bourbon-Parme, who was actually the special envoy for natural resources at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and who also read the report, and I consulted him a lot of times for this report. So first of all, is there anybody in the room who does not have a mobile phone? One, two. Well, actually, that's more the world. How do you say it? The world mean. There are 6 billion mobile phone subscriptions in the world on a population of 7 billion people. So, and this smartphone is symptomatic for natural resources, for raw materials. One of the raw materials which is used in a smartphone is cobalt or tantalum or gold from Congo, from Peru, from Mexico. It's from everywhere. For a mobile phone, there are 200 actors in the supply chain who globally working on a product like a mobile phone. And in the Netherlands, we are the 5th largest importer of mobile phones and laptops in the world, the 3rd largest in the EU. For example, in 2013, we imported 14.8 billion mobile phones and 20 million laptops. 74% of that import is from China. Well, 2 issues related to this mobile phone. First of all, there is a giant population growth forecasted. For 2050, it is there's a forecast that it will be 9 billion people. And the second trend is the growth of the middle class and the consumption of the middle class. And those middle class you see on the picture here, and you see that over 50% in 2050 of the middle class, global middle class, is in India and China. Even 80% if you include African middle class. So in the EU, we becoming less influential as a middle class. And these topics are very, very important. To compare it, in the 20th century, due to population growth and the rise of the middle class, there were 34 times more natural resources necessary in 2000 than in 1900. So that's why negative forecasts explain a resource nexus, a kind of battle for resources. I think the picture is not that clear, but you see land, energy, water, food, and minerals. And I will focus this evening on the minerals and metals, because that are the critical raw materials. They have some more famous names, cobalt, you might have heard of it, but also many names that I've never heard of before I wrote this dossier, like beryllium or gallium or niobium. But we know them for the products. Well, there are two problems with these critical raw materials. First of all, we have a supply risk in the European Union. We don't have these critical raw materials ourselves. And a second problem is the social and ecological problems in the extraction or the digging of these critical raw materials. And these problems especially maneuver themselves in the developing countries. You have biotic raw materials, which is more the soya, coffee, but you also have the abiotic raw materials, and those are the metals and minerals that I will talk about today. Well, as you see, the European Commission conducted a study with experts on which are these critical raw materials, and these raw materials that you see here were on the list in the end, while others like aluminium or magnesite or lithium are also very critical, but are not the critical raw materials for the European Commission. What you see here is a coal mine in India, and that is this open field of coal mines that is symptomatic for the extraction of these raw materials. Wide open fields. For example, we outsource many of these dirty mining operations to other parts of the world. The last Dutch mine closed in 1974, so that's 40 years ago this year. And many countries are very dependent on these raw materials, especially developing countries where there are some who are for 90% dependent on these raw materials. A bit on the theory of these raw materials, on scarcity. Already in 1798, Thomas Malthus explained in his Principle of Population that natural resources are finite. Especially when there's population growth, you have the risk that the natural resources are getting up. Also, the Club of Rome in 1973 had a similar argument, and many persons from ecology have adopted this kind of fixed stock paradigm, that there is that there are resources, but that they can be getting up because of population growth. On the other side of the debate are economists who developed the opportunity cost paradigm, which is especially a supply and demand side of theory, that indeed raw materials are getting more scarce, but then the price is getting up, and there will be technological innovation to look for other resources. So those theories do not match, that was the debate in the 20th century. But with Brundtland, a report of the United Nations, the former Norwegian Prime Minister developed the concept of sustainable development, which you may know as a development that meets the need of the present generation, but which also takes future generations into account. So scarcity is now, but you also have to take it into account for future generation. How does the European Commission look at these critical raw materials? Well, they especially look from an economic lens. The Directorate General for Enterprise and Industry took those research on the definition of critical raw materials, and they especially looked at the economic importance of these critical raw materials and the supply risk. But as I said before, it's not only economic importance and supply risk, it's also problems related to environment, to governments, to human rights, to labor rights. And these problems especially manifest themselves in developing countries. And in all three chapters I will look at both the Netherlands and EU economic lens, as well as the developing countries' more social, ecological lens. Well, the study of the European Commission on those critical raw mineral materials, you see it in the figure. You see a small Europe where these critical raw materials are absent, and a lot of countries where we have not that very good relations with, like Russia, Russian Federation, or China, which is a bit ambivalent relation. Yeah, they have these raw materials, and we need them all for our products, and our multinational companies do need them in the supply chain of their products. So this is an update of the supply risk which the European Commission did in 2014. You see a couple of new raw materials like niobium and chromium, but the theory or the concept behind it is quite the same. So companies, they have to think, what do I have today, what do I need tomorrow, and what will be the future of my product, because I need these materials. I don't know if you can see this graph, but KPMG asked companies, do you think that your company will face supply risk in the coming 5 years? And you see that there's a lot of fear for companies for the next 5 or 10 years, that their raw materials are getting up, or that they need to get it from other sources. And you see a lot of sectors who fear this raw material scarcity, especially the infrastructure, the automotive, aerospace. I will point to these products later on, that they are indeed very dependent on raw materials from countries not in Europe. And they are also the prices of these raw materials change a lot. You see a peak in 2008, but also a very downward turn for energy and metals, and also, of course, for food. Companies need in their business case have to think about this, how to cope with these issues, because it's of course a long-term phase. You also have a website which is called World Mapper, who looks at the import of metals and then make a global map. And you see that you see very clearly that the northern part of the world, or especially European Union and the United States, import their metals from other parts of the world, like Southern America or Africa. Well, these products, indeed. One of the critical raw materials is antimony, if I say it correctly, which is a raw material which is used in batteries, and this critical raw materials is for 90% in China. For the military equipment, you need beryllium, which is for a majority in Mozambique or the United States of America. For gallium, which you need in the space industry, is especially in Russia. The indium, which you need for the medical technology, is especially in Korea. Fluorspar, which you need in computer chips for ASML and other companies in the Netherlands, is especially in Mexico or in Mongolia. But these are the large sectors. But these raw materials are also in products we use daily, so it's not that far away. We need platinum metals, which are from 75% from South Africa, in our cars, in our jewels. We need rare earth metals, whereas 97% of the production is in China for those environmentally friendly car, the Toyota Prius, for example. So, yeah, the products are everywhere, and not only for those electronical products, but also for food. And I will show you an explanation movie on phosphate rock, or phosphorus, and I will have a look.
Rising prosperity, the demand.
Sorry.
Phosphorus. We all need this nutrient to exist. It is an essential ingredient of the fertilizers we use for feed and food. There is no substitute for phosphorus. It is irreplaceable. 90% of the available phosphorus is used for fertilizers, and therefore it is essential for worldwide food security. But we are running out. Where does phosphorus come from? Raw phosphorus is obtained by mining phosphate rock. These mines are mainly located in China, the US, and Morocco. In Europe, hardly any raw phosphorus is available, except for a very small quantity in Finland. Due to the increasing world population and rising prosperity, the demand for phosphorus is growing rapidly. Besides that, more and more phosphorus is needed to grow plants for biofuels. But where does phosphorus go after use? We waste it. Phosphorus disappears from the food chain as organic waste, such as animal manure, food waste, and even our own pee and poo. Waste phosphorus pollutes rivers, lakes, and oceans. This process of eutrophication is a leading threat to water quality around the world. Eventually, the world's reserves will run out. But the exact moment of depletion is uncertain. Many factors will influence this: an increasing population, the growing demand for meat and biofuels, and new discoveries of phosphate rock. We depend on countries outside Europe for our access to phosphorus reserves. Without access to phosphorus, Europe will be unable to feed its own population. For our own food security and environment, we have to take action today. This is what we call the phosphorus challenge. We have to use less, recycle more, and cooperate. Find and share solutions on the online phosphorus platform. Register now for the European Sustainable Phosphorus Conference in Brussels.
Too late. But I hope this movie gives you a bit of a background on this issue. Then to raw materials as a source of wealth. On the picture you see a king from Mali in the 14th century, Mansi Musa. And in 2012, a United States research program announced him as the most rich person who ever lived on this planet, especially due to the gold that was in Mali at that time. But they say that raw materials are is the gold of the 21st century. And if there is a lot of concentration of these raw materials, you see that there is state influence, and you see, especially in more weakly governed countries, that the leaders are very influential and want to get access to the wealth of these resources. This is a picture from the OECD, who made Africa in a kind of raw material continent, and you see that they have a lot of biotic and abiotic raw materials in their countries. And to come back to this picture, you see that these raw materials are just in Africa, in Brazil, in China, in the BRICS countries, which I will talk later on. But there are also theories that resource is not only bringing wealth, but it's also a kind of curse, that in the longer term you have less economic growth due to this wealth of resources. Especially in failed states, you see that they have a lot of resources. And that this theory of resource curse especially occurs for the so-called point source resources, these raw materials who have a high concentration of the resource, and that is especially for minerals and metals, of course, where you can have a high profit if you have a very small amount of gold or metal. Another theory, which is closely related, is the Dutch disease, and you see an explanation of this Dutch disease on the picture of the Australian Research Centre. When you discover a lot of natural resources, like for example gas in the 1960s, as you all know, in the Netherlands, the value of the currency goes up, and people need to have more higher pays, and all export is then also getting more expensive. And that has also a very negative effect on other sectors of the economy. So the solution for the Dutch disease is often a diversification. So you need to diversify your economy, so that you not only rely on this natural resource, but also on other sectors like ICT or other sectors. Of course, it's a kind of wealth, and UNICEF made this infographic that natural resources could also be used to send more children to school, for example. And I give you a moment to read the infographic. But you can't read it. So the first sentence is: the Democratic Republic of Congo receives less than 10% of export income from their minerals. Now, this is estimated to equal a loss of 223 million. And this is the amount of money enough to send 3.6 million children to primary school. So the potential that the exports of minerals in the United Republic of Tanzania could yield 130 million per year. So it's enough to give children a universal primary education. And that whole infographic is saying that the wealth that you earn from these natural resources can indeed be used for more noble goals than the pockets of the leaders, of course. And you see on the picture, you see also Zimbabwe, which is one of the very good examples where tens of thousands of people are not living a good life, while the leadership or the owners of the great multinational companies in this are earning a lot of money. I spoke to the Center of Natural Resource Governance there in Zimbabwe, where they say that 500,000 people of the labor force are kind of working unregulated, and that there are intermediaries who channel these raw materials to countries in the neighborhood. So what the IMF is proposing or advising is that countries should put the income of their natural resources in sovereign wealth funds, especially countries like Norway, but also Chile or even Botswana, put those incomes of their natural resources in sovereign wealth funds for future generations. So that is a kind of solution which is said to be very, very good. But then to the ecological effects of the raw materials. Well, there are a couple of ecological and social problems. There are three problems that I would like to share with you here. First, extraction is one of the problems, especially when we have less raw materials. Companies need to dig deeper into the ground, which gives more problems. We heard, for example, today from a mine in Turkey, where 20 people are now under the ground, especially because they need to dig deeper for the extraction of their raw materials. A second problem is the social and health circumstances. As I said before, in Zimbabwe there are a lot of people working unregulated. labor rights are violated. Child labor is also something that I heard a lot. And also local indigenous populations who cannot, who do not have legal, legal force to fight the state or the multinational companies, and they need to get out of their local habitat. And a third problem is ecological waste, even in the after phase. So not I especially talked from now until now about the pre-consumption phase, but also in the after-consumption phase, the electronical waste can give a problem. And I have a bit of an activist a movie, I must say, but it gives you an overview.
Environmental. Two social geeks, high-tech freaks. Here's a story of two brothers, mental and environmental. Two social geeks, high-tech freaks. Here a screen, there a scream. Here a wire, there a fire. Big remotes and a little mouse. Electronics fill the house. When the updated gizmos came in, the outdated went into the dustbin. Actually, they didn't. You see, Mental was also sentimental. It was funny how much he loved money. He said gadgets are old, but filled with gold. So to the kabadi wala they were sold. His boys broke and bashed and burned the stuff, while babies and bees and geese died out because they'd had enough. Lead, cadmium and mercury poisoned the air, water and soil. All because Mental wanted money to buy budgies fried in oil. Don't be mental, be environmental. Dispose of your e-waste at a collection center. Who knows, like him, you also might meet her. And have babies playing with bees and geese because you didn't sell your e-waste to buy budgies. Find a collection center at sahas.org/e-waste.
I had to explain you that it was not too easy to listen to this accent, but I hope you understand the problem. So here you see a picture of a landfill in Ghana, for example, where you see all these computers, e-waste, which is often toxic waste, on these landfills. So it's returning to the developing countries, but not very good. I give you a case to explain it more, which is the Democratic Republic of Congo. You hear it a lot in the discussions about raw materials. Well, the Democratic Republic of Congo has a lot of wealth on gold, on cobalt, on wolfram, of tantalum, tin. They have all kinds of natural resources, especially in the eastern part of the country, near Rwanda and Uganda. You have Lake Kivu, where a lot of raw materials are in the ground, and 75% of the export of the Democratic Republic of Congo is in these raw materials. But you also had a civil war about these raw materials in 1998 to 2003. And the international community has ideas how to solve this. And for example, in the United States, you have a very influential Dodd-Frank Act. You probably heard about it. It forbids companies to sell products, electronics, which can be based in these. To start explaining it again, it forbids companies to sell electronics from where raw materials are in it from mines from dirty mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo. But as I explained earlier, the product is a combination of 200 actors. So the multinational companies could not go to the source of these raw materials. So they, what they did was they pulled back from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So what I heard from people who come there, who visit the Democratic Republic of Congo a lot, is that 90% of the multinational companies there are gone, and that there are especially now only Chinese and Russian companies working there. So yeah, what are the solutions? I'm also very interested if you have from your background some ideas on how to solve these kind of issues, of course. The Netherlands does some very good things, of course, also. There is a conflict-free tin initiative where they said, yeah, that Dodd-Frank Act could also work, but what we will try is to try to get conflict-free tin from a mine in Congo. So we help the Congolese people to get such a mine, and also in the whole supply chain, so also labor rights in China, and those conflict-free tin is also used in some products, and I will talk to you about this conflict-free tin in a minute. But are raw materials a source of wealth? I don't know. As a pre-conclusion, I would say it has huge potential, but it is also used negatively a lot. So then to the third chapter of my presentation, raw materials as source of conflict. This is a very small island. It is called the Senkaku Island. You probably have heard about it. It is an island between China and Japan, and well, it's of course a beautiful island. It is especially an island where a conflict is fought about because of the natural resources which are behind or in the neighborhood of this island. And here China is involved, and China is a game changer in the raw materials. They are, of course, they are into these raw materials earlier, at an earlier stage, but especially from the 2000s, they are very, very active on raw material diplomacy, especially also in Africa, but also more indirect. You see here a picture of the London Metal Exchange, which is a very old platform, already in 1877 founded and based in London, but 2 years ago bought by the by a Hong Kong company, and it is a members-only platform where also the price of the metals are defined. So now it's in the hands of a Hong Kong company, and with the Chinese people involved. So they are indirectly influential in setting the price of raw materials. And you see a lot of the so-called BRICS countries. It is a concept which is invented by a Goldman Sachs economist. So they are not really a uniform kind of actor, but they are working together more and more. So it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, and they are also an actor both in the production of the raw materials, but also in getting more raw materials, because they have a lot of population growth. They have a growing middle class, so they need these raw materials for their middle class. And it is a sort of conflict. Unfortunately, there is not a good global platform for raw materials where you have the United Nations. There is not a United Nations forum for raw materials. So countries are working bilaterally to get deals on these raw materials, also in trade agreements, but it's very difficult. And you also see it, you even see it in the European Union, where as I showed you earlier, the case is quite clear. We do not have these raw materials ourselves, so we need to cooperate to get access to these raw materials. Nevertheless, the Netherlands has got a deal last year in Bolivia, for example. The Germans, who have of course a very large automotive sector, they are having deals in Kazakhstan, there is some kind of raw material initiative with 3 priorities: fair access, encouraging independence, and resource efficiency. However, countries themselves are also very active, and in the right you see the new High Representative for Foreign Affairs, Mogherini. Probably she will be more active on this field, but it's a very difficult to work together, even for European countries. But you have a lot of actors in these raw materials, from governments to international organizations, and they don't have the same how to say it. They don't have the same goals. So, for example, NGOs, civil societies are very much oriented towards these social and ecological problems, while multinational companies are very much interested in the supply risk for their products. And consumers also have different goals, of course. Everybody wants a better world, but you also want your new iPhone. So how to do this? Well, this I've said before. There are, of course, initiatives to get the supply chain more responsible. I already talked about the Dodd-Frank Act. Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act is the long name of this act. But you also have, you see with Kofi Annan, you see Professor Ruggie, who has made some guidelines for the United Nations of a duty of a state to protect its local populations in this. To protect raw materials, and you have the OECD who is active, and I already mentioned the conflict-free tin initiatives. And if you think about it, are there very fair supply chain? Is there a fair car, or fair jewels, a fair camera, fair PlayStation? Yeah, there are some initiatives. For example, in the industry of clothes, but also there you saw last year that Rana Plaza in Bangladesh was a terrible tragedy, of course. And I only have 3 minutes, so I will not continue with this case study, but it's very interesting to have a look at it yourselves. It's a kind of initiative for a product to make a real phone, a fair phone, as a mobile phone is a product of 30, where 30 raw materials are used, and Fairphone is trying to get a phone with more fair raw materials. And it's a very interesting initiative, and they are very open and transparent about their how they try to do this. Well, consumers are important. How can they help? They can help in recycling. For example, in 2011, only 1% of mobile phones were recycled. They can consume less, of course. They buy more responsible. They can also be more active in encouraging transparency. And you also see that NGOs are active in this field, for example, in ranking brands on ecology or socially responsible behavior. And the circular economy is, of course, also a very good initiative in this field, because raw materials are not gone or up. They are still in the product, and they can be used for other products instead of evaporation. So what are the solutions for the problems of raw materials? Of course, more international cooperations, transparency, more awareness raising, for example, by education or these kind of lectures, and recycling and collection of waste. And well, this was my presentation. You can, of course, I have 12 books, reports with me, but you can also ask for a copy by sending an email or visiting our website. That was it. Oh.
Thank you very much. Highly informative presentation. I'm sure it leads a lot of questions unanswered. And who should I give the initiative on this? Yes, I will come up to you, at least as far as I can. Against my habits, I have to pass over the microphone. I hope I get it back.
Thank you very much. I have not a question. I would like to make a comment relating to the phosphor as agricultural fertilizer. In your presentation was mentioned Morocco, and in my information that's not exactly correct. It is true that Morocco has this raw material itself, but the biggest part of this raw material and the best quality is in Western Sahara, which is for 70% occupied illegally by the state of Morocco. And this phosphor was one of the important reasons. Western Sahara was a Spanish colony, and a colony has a right to independence and should not be reoccupied by a neighbor where the royal family would like to make more money than they already have.
Well, thank you for the comment. I've not been aware of this from the literature or from these kind of information movies. It is especially said that phosphorus is in USA, China, Morocco, Syria, and Kazakhstan. Yes. So those are the 5 countries almost always mentioned as the countries where phosphorus is based.
So Morocco succeeds to occupy the mines as well.
Your observation is correct. Yeah,
Probably.
Yeah. West Sahara, disputed territory, and well, it feeds into the kind of sovereignty dimension that you see implicitly in your story as well. That some we tend to look at these conflicts in state-centric terms. So how's Congo doing? How's Morocco
exactly,
doing?
yeah.
Exactly.
Well, there are a lot of actors involved, more actors involved than just nation states. Yeah.
I saw from your gesture that you also had a question. Yes.
Can you, for me, elaborate what the difference is of, like, you now focused on scarce metals mostly, with what is now going on for oil? So, in what perspective can I see similarities and what are differences? Because also Europe has not plenty of oil, though it somehow doesn't seem to bother us that much.
Without turning this into a second lecture.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know Ries, if other persons also will cover this issue.
Well, next
Yeah.
week we have Kobe van der Linde, who is specialized in oil and gas as the main resources. But it's interesting that apparently these are separate discourses. Can you say something about what is the essence in the critical in the raw materials here?
Well, yeah, I think the problems are quite the same, of course.
But the literature you study, is it silent on oil and gas?
Yes. Yes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So you see, as one of the slides is on the resource nexus. So there is a study from the Transatlantic Academy which is taking it all. So food, water, land, oil, metals.
Yeah.
But it's very difficult to see studies who combine it all. Yeah.
Perhaps we have more. So I have two fingers here.
Yeah, I was curious to hear something about strategic. For instance, I read somewhere that the Khabar field in Saudi Arabia, the biggest field, is getting each year 7% less oil, and then you have to have a strategy, what to do.
Yeah.
So, and I was curious if you have seen on several other topics, studies, what to do when the source is lost.
You also see it in China, of course, with these growing middle class, and they also have a lot of resources themselves, but they need to import it from other countries. So their strategy from 2000 is especially to link up with African countries and, for example, build infrastructure or stadiums in return for resources, for oil. So those are strategies sometimes used, for example, by China in this case. I'm not aware of how Saudi Arabia, for example, is doing this, but they probably are doing some of the same things. Yeah.
Your talk was very informative, but also very broad scale, and not always on the detail, and that made me wonder, could you give a summation of the most important positive and the most important negative trends in how governments and also multinationals deal with raw materials?
Yes. Well, positive trends, I already mentioned this, are these kind of schemes where governments and multinational companies and NGOs are working together. One of these positive examples is the Conflict-Free Tin Initiative, where the Dutch government is working together with Motorola, Apple, and an American NGO pact together to search for to accomplish this conflict-free tin mine in Democratic Republic of Congo. But one of the negative trends, but that's more of a static trend, but it's all voluntary. So companies can, of course, join, but they are not obliged to join. So they can make it very intransparent still. For example, we know that In 2000, you needed for a mobile phone 75 kilos of raw materials for a mobile phone. But we don't know how many kilos are necessary to make a smartphone, for example, because the companies can still, not say something about this extraction. Yeah.
Just a second. You have a good comment here. Yeah.
No, as I understand, we don't have any traceability, over these raw materials.
We have no, sorry.
Traceability. We cannot trace.
That's very difficult indeed. Yeah. Indeed. You also don't have a kind of global geological exploration where you have the U.S. Geological Survey, which is quite good, and in the European Union you have geologists. Discipline working together, but there's not a kind of global traceability initiative of the raw materials yet. Yeah.
Okay, so still one question, if I can. Do we have even chance? Because if I see countries, BRIC countries, they are actually player. Yeah. Do we have any chance here to be a player? How do you think about
What do you think? What do you mean with we?
Europe, let's say Europe, Netherlands, Europe, yes.
Yeah.
Because if you see Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, we are really far away from all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And we are just, Do we have any chance to be equal partner?
Yes, I guess we still are, because the European Union is still the largest economy in the world, for example. Still 3 times as big as China, for example. So, and we have a lot of consumers. A lot of multinational companies are based in Europe. We have a lot of consumers who are also working on corporate social responsibility, which is a real trend since the 2000s. So, no, we're not.
But is that also a trend in the BRIC countries? So that's a bit what is implied in the question, that we have all these nice responsibility initiatives, but how globally is that shared?
Yeah. Well, first, I don't think we are the good guys and they are the bad guys. But yes, of course, we have more of a history in this corporate social responsibility, and we try to convince the BRICS countries on this. Yeah.
It's interesting. If listening to the presentation and the debate, I see two separate. I come to you. I see two separate issues which seem to have different worlds. One is scarcity. So. If we have new rising economies, if we have a growing world population, can we still do this? So should we change our economics in such a way that we don't need these metals anymore? Or what is the solution there? That's one kind of debate. And then the question is, indeed, will Europe, which doesn't produce much, lose this battle if it becomes a battle? The second debate is about how do we produce it? And so is there something like, well, you have John Ruggie there. He's one of our stars in international relation theory, because he's leading the academic debate and he's leading the UN. And we don't have many colleagues who are able to do that. No. And he indeed wrote a very influential report on social corporate responsibility. He was also one of the driving forces behind the UN Millennium Goals. So he's a powerhouse, intellectually and politically. And but what can he achieve? So that's the second debate. How can we have decent production? How can we have what is fair in fair trade? And so it's these seem to me two separate discourses. One is on, can we do this economically? The other is, can we do it in a human way? And so how does that collide, for example, in a report that you have been writing?
Yeah, I think what I did was first giving a kind of overview of scarcity, and then then explaining that these are two sides of the same coin. That there is that there is a supply risk if you don't have these raw materials, but that you also have problems if you have these raw materials. For example, Malawi has a lot of rare earth metals, so they don't feel very scarce in their raw materials, but they also have a lot of problems in their country, of course. So yeah.
No solution yet, but new questions.
Okay.
I saw you first. Here you go.
Well, it's especially the Chinese are rather aggressive in their procurement strategies. For example, the land grabbing in Africa. I was just wondering, are there any other countries that have a strategy as aggressive as the Chinese that you are aware of?
And you don't mean the former colonial powers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right now. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. As said, what I heard from Democratic Republic of Congo, that it are the Chinese and the Russians now there, so they are still there. Also, but I don't know if they are that dirty, but they are present for very long. Is Japan? They have kind of invented raw materials diplomacy. I'm not aware if they're also that aggressive, but they are aggressive in getting there and having diplomatic activities there, and yeah, they're very much aware of this raw material scarcity already from the beginning.
And why didn't we have a debate on Japan in Africa? Is that known? All of a sudden, with China, we talk about land grabbing and other kind of aggressive kind of language. But
it's just guessing, but I guess that Japan has been part of our group of international partners for longer. Yeah, yeah.
A different perspective. I have a question.
Hi. Do you know if there are any limitation in the choice of a country when you want to import something, when they have very bad conditions in the labor of the people, or some like a law or something to put some limits in, for example, in the choice, if they have very bad conditions from dangerous materials, or I don't know.
You mean a positive example of where it works, is it?
Yeah, for example, one in Mexico they have very bad conditions when they get gold and silver, but well, the other country wants to buy it. Well, they buy it, but they could buy it to Africa or whatever. So if here in Europe there's something like a law or something to put some limits in the choice of.
I think I don't understand your question. Do you mean that Europe itself limits it, or has an example of you?
Well, one
European
example,
Union.
Yeah. One example could be the mines in Romania, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Gold mines, and
There. You had, for example, this year a real protest in Romania. Where they opened new gold mines, but people were very, they feared these gold mines, especially for the labor conditions. So there's more of a protest. There's especially more public protest on these mines, and that is why I also said that consumers or the general public is of course important in this raw material in these raw material problems. It's not only nation states fighting on an island in the East China Sea. It's also public public discourse.
Okay, we have a question here.
I was interested in your statistics about the middle class
Yeah.
people. I think part of the strategy of China and India too, and what Russia too, is to focus on the vast amount of people they have themselves
Yeah.
coming in the middle class situation,
Yeah.
and turning them back to, let's say, Europe. And we can expect to have slowly, hopefully, to be more poor.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. Yeah, one of the statistics
you
that I
just
did.
proved we don't need a microphone in this room. But the issue was clear. We have oh, it was not clear. We have growing middle classes, and apparently they want to have our Western lifestyles.
Yeah.
And that might be unpayable. So perhaps we should learn a different lesson and copy their lifestyles. Is that part of the story? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, but indeed, the middle class was 2 billion people in 2010. Will be 5 billion people in 2030, as they are the forecast. And this growth is, of course, especially in the countries you see here. Yeah, and we also need to have a debate how to do it here, when we will have less. Yeah.
So this is a time bomb.
Yeah, some people say indeed. PwC had a report saying it is a ticking time bomb, the scarcity of raw materials. Yeah. Yeah.
One could state that a very favorable school of thought would be durability, especially how it's stated by Brundtland and his co-workers. Is there a trend of players and countries veering to durability or veering from it away?
Can you explain durability?
Yeah.
Durability is a school of thought which states that we have to administer our wealth in raw materials, in food, everything, not only for the needs and wants of our generation, but also for the future generations. We have to be very aware that there will be life for many generations to go on, and so we can't just consume. But that's not on the same page with what we want. So there's always a problem. But there are certain kinds of certain fields in society where durability is prominent. There are also fields in our society worldwide where durability is not prominent because gain and making profit is far more paramount.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, you cannot say there are really countries, or maybe the Nordic countries, Scandinavian countries, a little bit the Netherlands maybe, who are on this path of durability. But it's, well, I guess that the corporate social responsibility has something in it, and it is, it is concepts or global shared value or these supply chains ID. It from the literature, maybe it has a different concept in it earlier, but I had the idea that it is especially since the 2000, 2005 that it's getting more prominent. And yeah, of course, if the private sector is interested in these shared value or global supply chains or more socially responsible business, that is, of course, very motivating phenomenon. And that is also where consumers are of course, important, because they buy the products from these multinational companies. So if they demand more socially responsible products, and they are, for example, willing to pay a little bit more for a more fair product, yeah, that could help. So I don't know if there are really nation states on a path to durability, but I would say private sector is getting a little bit more on the path of durability.
There is
a little bit.
There is perhaps one positive note here, that one thing has proven to be sustainable, and that's the debate about sustainability. we have it now since 1987, and it's still around. And apparently we're still alive as well, and in the meantime. So quite a lot of the predictions had to be adjusted in the past 20 years due to new technological scientific insight. But the threat scenarios are still there. And so one of the questions here is, well, traditional liberal economists would say, well, okay, we run out of these materials, we find something else. Mm-hmm. So what's the problem? And we will find substitutes, and as long as you don't have these, fine, work with them. But
exactly.
So, what's the problem?
There was when I read about this fixed stock paradigm or the opportunity cost paradigm. I found the economic opportunity cost paradigm quite simple, simply
but
stated.
Simple can be right.
Yeah,
1 and 1 is
exactly.
2.
Yeah,
it's very simple, but it's correct. So what's wrong with this paradigm? We will find something.
Yeah,
we are clever people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that not a problem of a lot of economists?
Ah, now I get people who get mad. You were first.
Okay, thank you. My neighbor said we talk about future generations, but I want to ask him, how many future generations? I'm an ecologist, so I think we have to think in thousands of years, maybe 10,000 of years.
Exactly.
And these future generations we are talking about is maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 generations. No more. This ticking time bomb we were talking about today is when will it go, of course, that's our question. Mm-hmm. But for phosphorus, one of your things is about 50 years. Yeah. Maybe if we do our best, it's 60 years or 70 years. But that's, for me, not the future. The future is in hundreds or thousands of years. What do you think about thousands of years?
Yeah, it's very good that you point to this 1,000 years, because it's exactly the kind of academic debate that is not speaking each other's language. Yeah, indeed, the supply and demand side of this generation is a lot other discussion than the ecological discussion. How many years we have these raw materials, and also we have the proven natural resource, but there are also natural resources who can still be explored. Yeah. So yes, you need to look at that. Yeah.
My question back would be: how do you win elections when
that
the perspective is
exactly
100,000 years? But you don't have to answer. Well, I first look around, because I've been at your place twice. I will walk to you. Yeah.
I heard a question about looking 1,000 years ahead. That's far beyond human possibility to think in terms of that. Can people have forecasted 100 or 200 years ago what is happening now? So we're walking with iPhones, that we're flying with planes. Nobody could have thought it. And you want to talk about 1,000 years ahead? Then you must have very big imagination.
not everyone agrees with your time perspective. Other questions? Yes, I see a woman in the middle. Can you help me passing the phone?
It's not a question, it's really another perspective. Everyone's talking about things that exist and how do we continue to do things the way we've been doing them. But going on to the theory of 200 years ago, we see that science and technology offers new paths. So I think the answer is to invest much more in science and technology and less in economics and all of these other talk subjects.
Economy is also a science, or not?
Working at a university, this is a very safe remark. We enjoy that. I would add to your science also the social sciences, because they are often left out in this kind of research. But I'm talking the real sciences. Ooh, you're lucky I'm chairing. I have another question.
Can't we save the world by controlling our fertility and adopt the Chinese system of one-child policy?
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I haven't thought about it, about that idea. But what can I ask you? What would that help?
It works in China, one-child policy.
Yeah, but what works?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round up because we are covering quite some ground, and I think what the debate shows is the complexity of these things. That even if you want to single out a simple subject like raw materials, and then even a subset of them, the whole complexity of world politics and economics and social life, etc., explodes in your face. About the predictions, perhaps one final word. I've read an article of someone who used our contemporary models for predicting the troubles that we have ahead, and used it for the 19th century, not your time perspective, but a bit closer. And it was about London and pollution. And one thing that model showed, it was somewhere in the late 1800s, it showed that London would be completely inhabitable by 1910 because of horse shit. That was the main form of transport, and it would pile up. Population growth together with increasing consumption patterns and this type of pollution would lead to inhabitable situation. Well, we've seen the solution. It never happened, and that's the message actually. The solution in this case was that we brought the pollution from the ground to the air, and that's what we're now struggling with, that there is too much pollution in the air. So one thing of the scenarios, keep that in mind, they predict things that simply will not happen because it cannot happen that way. And the question is, well, how we get out of that. I'd like to thank you, Ries, for a very good introduction to what is a lecture series, actually. Next week, we will have Professor Kobi van der Linde, who is director of the Klingendaal International Energy Program and an international renowned speaker on gas and oil, the kind of resources that we did not cover today. The week after you were announced William Engdahl's speech, but for personal reasons he's not able to be here. And then a week after we have a discussion on the European situation with Gladio, wasn't it? Yeah. And Asia, Russia. So we will get a lot of these debates back, but informed with new information from the academic world and the political world. And I hope to see you back there. Ries, you really have started us up, warmed us up with a good introduction about this. We have a book here which is called A Crazy Start, and that's what it is. But this, in this case, is about the end of the Second World War in Germany. So the context is quite different, but the title is quite apt. Thank you a lot for giving this presentation.